Here's something that's really hard for a lot of us to believe, but it's true, Governor, and I want you to explain it. This shooter, he wasn't old enough to buy a handgun. You got to be 21, but he could buy at the age of 18 a year or so ago an AR-15 style assault weapon in Florida. Why is that?
We are going to look at all these things to figure out, what works and is not working. And we're gonna our primary goal, as I bring everybody together, is to say these kids are going to be safe. So we're going to look at all these issues to figure out how can we make sure these kids are safe, and also make sure that people that are struggling with mental illness do not have a gun.
Let me phrase it another way, because this is really shocking to so many of us, Governor. He wasn't old enough to buy a beer legally in your state. You got to be 21 years old. So why is it that in Florida he could buy an assault weapon at the age of 18?
Yeah, well, I think it's a legitimate question. We have to go back and we've got to look at these things and say to ourselves that our primary goal is school safety, and so. I want to make sure we don't ever trample on anybody's constitutional rights, but we've got to focus on keeping these kids safe.
Because if this shooter had a different gun instead of this AR-15 style weapon, and the police say he had multiple rounds, he could have gone even further than he did. He certainly wouldn't have been able to kill as many young people and others if he had a different kind of weapon. So I just want you to tell our viewers you're going to take action as the governor of Florida to change this, to prevent this from happening again for someone only 18, clearly with a history, this individual just going into a store and buying an assault weapon.
Well, if we have to. We cannot. I mean, look, I have grandchildren. I have daughters. I want them all to be safe. I want your children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews to be safe. We are going to figure out how moving forward, this never happens again. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure this never happens again.
So, because this isn't the first mass shooting in Florida, we're all familiar what happened in Orlando. We know what happened at the Fort Lauderdale airport. We keep hearing this, Governor, and I know you love the young kids. You want to prevent this from happening again. So, do you have an answer that you can give these grieving parents right now, specifically what you're going to do in terms of new laws to prevent the purchase of these kinds of assault weapons by these kinds of individuals?
Yeah. Well, the terrorist attack in Orlando was a terrorist attack. We added 46 more counterterrorism experts to try to work on that issue. As I talk to families, I've told them I'm going to get people from all over the state. I'm going to get individuals to sit down to figure out how to get this done. I've already talked to my Speaker of the House, my Senate President. Said we have got to get something done. They said they're going to be very supportive of working with me to get something done in the state.
Legislative. It's not that complicated. You just got to pass some new laws to make it more difficult for 18-year-olds to buy assault weapons, right? We're
going to figure out exactly what we can do, and I'm going to work through all the leaders in the state, local and state, and we're going to figure this out. I do not want this to happen again.
Because Florida is such an important state right now, and the laws need to be tightened. You have so many tourists who come there. They want to feel safe when they come to Florida. I go there, as you know, all the time. But I want you to listen, Governor, to this mother of one of the victims, because she is so, so strong. Listen to this.
President Trump, you say, what can you do? You can stop the guns from getting into these children's hands. Put metal detectors at every entrance to the schools. What can you do? You can do a lot. This is not fair to our families, that our children go to school and have to get killed. I just spent the last 2 hours putting the burial arrangements for my daughter's funeral, who's 14. President Trump, please do something. Do something. Action! We need it now. These kids need safety now.
Governor, how do you answer this grieving mother?
You first off, you can't. I mean, there's no way to answer it except you've got to say, we got to do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen. I've already talked to my Senate President Speaker. I've asked for funding for school safety. They said they're going to be committed to working with me to put more money into school safety in our state. We've got to figure these things out. We cannot let this pass without making something happen that hopefully is my goal, that this will never happen again in my state.
I just want to pin you down on this, Governor, because I've known you for a long time. The President of the United States today spoke for about 7 minutes. He didn't mention the word gun even once. Are you ready to commit your political team to work to tighten gun control, gun restrictions in the state of Florida?
I'll be stronger than that, Wolf. Everything's on the table. All right, I'm going to look at every way that we can make sure our kids are safe.
Even if the National Rifle Association goes after you?
Wolf, I'm going to do. I love my kids, my grandkids. I know every family in the state is in the same position. We love our children. I'm going to do whatever I can do to keep these kids safe. I'm going to talk about every issue to keep these kids safe,
including gun control.
It's a lot of things. It's looking at who should have guns. Should individuals with mental illness have guns? What can we do to create more safety in our schools? What can we do to make it easier for our children and make them feel comfortable to report things? It's not one thing. It's all these things put together.
There's a lot that needs to be done right now, and I know, Governor, you as everyone else who has seen these awful, awful images, heard these grieving parents, spoken with the students, and you're right there in Broward County. You see what's going on, and I know that everyone who's watching us right now, they're wishing that we could come to some conclusions right now, learn some critically important lessons, and make sure it doesn't happen again. Governor, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have you back soon.
Thank you, Wolf.